So, my name is John Cornicello, and I welcome you to my series of live interactive photo conversations. You can check out the schedule at cornicello.com/conversations for dates and times of upcoming shows. We've got Harold Davis, Roman Lawrence, John Caponegro, and Paul Caponegro, Ellen Friedlander, Teresa Meyer, and more. And on Thursday, we have a special meeting for Michael Newler's birthday, but don't tell him about it. Um, I want to thank my friends at Interfit Photo for sending me their Badger Beam LED light that I'm using to light the show now. Uh, you can get a discount on Interfit Photos equipment using the code Cornicello10 at checkout. Today, my guest is Julie Corcoran. Julie is a conceptual photographer based in Ireland. She's currently represented by 3 galleries in Belfast, Enniskillen, is that, and Dublin.
Yeah.
Yep, good. In 2020, Julie published her first photo book, Time, with words by poet Fidel Hogan and Walsh, and the introduction by Brooke Shaden In. So please welcome Julie Corcoran. Yay.
Thank you guys for coming.
So you've got a little presentation for us.
What I decided to do was I would put everything into Keynote, and what we could do is just then talk. I'm just going to share the screen now, and we can talk as I go through the different points. And so you can keep your mics on, ask me questions, tell me to stop, tell me to hurry up, tell me to whatever. But I thought because we're visual people, it would be nice to maybe share some of my work using the Keynote slides. So I love this quote, Seamus Heaney quote: "I admire works that use fantasy, treat the world as a trampoline." And really that's what my photography is about. So this is actually, I wrote this out and put it at the front of my portfolio that I bring to galleries, because I just think it's a fantastic quote. And really, where it all began for me, I'll just introduce myself. I'm based here in Ireland, originally from Dublin, living in Cavan. And just over 5 years ago, I'd always taken photographs, but I joined a camera club. And that's where I learned sort of new techniques and made new friends and that type of thing. So where it all began for me with the type of conceptual photography I do now is really through symbols. So I've just put here one of my first sort of Photoshop composites, and you know, technically it's not great, but when we're starting out, I mean, it's really important not to get too het up in that type of thing. The main thing with this image is that I had seen a top, a Da Vinci top. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but anyway, it was a fashion top, and there was a snarling Rottweiler on it, and I have rescue Rotties, so they're just lovely, and I love them to bits, and they're softies. And this particular guy, Rocky, basically thinks he's a cat. So I had, so what I'm saying is I really responded to something I'd seen, and I was like, well, that's not how I see that dog. So I wanted to create an image that symbolized what I thought of him. And I sort of just took pen and paper and wrote down all sorts of things. And I came up with this idea of him holding a rose. But I didn't want him to hold an actual rose, you know, with the whole issue of thorns and things like that. So what I did was I just worked out how I could do it best. And the simplest way was to get him to hold a straw, like a plastic straw in his mouth for a sausage treat. And then take a photograph of a rose and then put the two together in Photoshop. So this would have been one of my first sort of pictures or images that I put together in Photoshop. And it was in response to something that I was sort of felt passionate about. So as I mentioned, I joined a camera club. So we have a lot of camera clubs here in Ireland, and indeed all around the world there's camera clubs. And I got involved with a lot of councils and distinctions and committees and things like that. So that's all the sort of the business end of stuff. But really, it was this sort of work that I was just drawn to, and I really wanted to make. Just get that to go. So signposts along the way, finding my path. When you're an artist or a photographer, or you're trying to find your own voice, it can be really, really tricky. And there's no book that tells you, for you, you know, where your path is or where you're going to head to. So I kind of like to think of it, when you're on this journey, that you're looking for little signposts or little thumbs up along the way. So this image, which I gave a very posh French name to, I really put this together. First of all, it was a friend of mine was releasing an album, and in fact, she was going to call it Release. And I sat down and I started writing down anything I could think of in relation to a release of creativity, even the colors and all that type of thing that I might use. And I had started seeing work by Brooke online and through things like the Creative Live classes.
And that's Brooke Shaden.
So yeah, Brooke Shaden, sorry.
Yeah.
And I really liked her style. There was a sort of a delicateness to it. There was also a beautiful painterly, like at first you look at these photographs and you're thinking, well, is that a photograph or is it a painting? And I just loved that sort of, you know, it got me thinking. And I like anything that, you know, sort of challenges you and makes you look, you know, stop and look twice. So this image I would have put into a salon, a photographic salon competition, along with some others. And I would have got a bronze award for this, the PSA one. And this was back a few years back now, but it was just the thumbs up I needed to sort of say, okay, you can put these together and they'll actually pass a panel of 3 judges, we'll say. So that's really on my journey through, you know, club photography and entering international salons and going for my distinctions. I was just looking for a little bit of feedback from my peers. And that's why I sort of say peer review. It's a tricky one because you have to be brave to put your work out there. You have to be very, very clued into who you're sharing your work with or where you're submitting your work for peer review. I mean, very often you hear of people and they'll put something up on Facebook, but that's not a great place to get feedback on your work. And in fact, it could nearly put you off, you know, following a path. So I found that as part of the process for me, I had to put my work up for, we'll say critique, for assessment. And here in Ireland, we have the Irish Photographic Federation. There's other federations and organizations across the world. And a lot of them have distinctions. There's, you know, different levels, but I decided I would go for it. I would actually put my work out there and get it assessed, get it adjudicated, and try and get some feedback and see, was my work coming up to a certain standard? So that's why that was kind of important to me on the journey. As I said, there's no book, there's no instructions. You know, you're not given a set of instructions when you're getting into creative work or whatever. So yeah, so
one thing I notice here is squares. I mean, your first photo of the dog was a rectangle, but everything since,
yeah,
is squares.
and yeah, and
everybody's frozen.
yeah, it was just a really interesting crop. I know Brooke Shaden uses it, and I looked at, you know, initially when I started getting into photography, I was doing a bit of landscape, I was doing a bit of portraiture and that type of thing. And yeah, you start off with the portrait and the landscapes and the different ratios there. But I really love the square. There's a power to the square crop that I really like and I'm drawn to. And that again, I find that if you're going to be creative, it can be a bit overwhelming. So if you start sort of coming up with, well, I tell you what, everything I make is just going to be in a square crop, suddenly it becomes less overwhelming. Or if you decide, you know, it's like doing a series of photographs or something like that. Yeah. Suddenly things start appearing to you and possibilities start appearing to you, because if you just say, right, I can do anything I like, use any subject matter I like, it becomes too overwhelming, and very often you get nothing done. So I had sort of said to myself, well, I'm going to use, for this particular panel, which was my A panel, there's just one subject in each of them, and they're actually my daughters. At that was back a couple of years ago now, but I sort of set myself some rules. So even though I'm being creative, I'm setting myself some rules so it becomes less overwhelming. And then what happens is then you start to develop a style. You can develop a style out of that, or what you can do is you can get a number of images and they start to fit together in a series then. So I don't know if people have preferred sort of crops or anything on their images. Do they find that adds to their style, or, you know, does it become a signature even?
Did you ever shoot film? I know, like the Hasselblad.
Never.
Oh, wow.
All I would have had was just film in a sort of, you know, your generic Canon camera for the family photos and that
Sure.
type of thing. You know,
It's
but
also
definitely
easier to do a CD cover if it's
yeah.
square.
Yeah, and that's where the power, again, it's like power and imagery. A CD cover, it's so important that people want to pick it up, but it's also so important that the CD image, the cover image, actually conveys what the music was about. And I've done a couple, and it's amazing how even the font and all that sort of thing can sort of convey what style of music.
It's also easier from the standpoint of, and you say rules, I like the term discipline, self-discipline, as opposed to rules, because I don't like no fucking rules. But I do think it's important for artists to have self-discipline in the work that they do, to have the discipline to have consistency or not sometimes. But the other thing I was going to say is, just in terms of the consistency, the one thing that Square does is it makes framing and matting and presenting so much easier if everything is the exact same. Now, it's not going to be the perfect crop for every work, and I've noticed some of your images could stand a little bit of cropping if you were looking for the perfect crop, but otherwise, none of them demand being cropped from the square, which I think is interesting in looking at your stuff. And then the other thing is, you find a good use of space in that square, which is something to be said for.
Yeah, Jim made a comment that in light of the very painterly, fantastic nature of your work, does using a square crop make the photos look less like a photograph and more like a painting, thereby suggesting a different experience for the viewer?
That's really interesting. Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing, because it's sort of like photography started really with the square, and then it moved on to the, you know, the different crops after that, and it's sort of a nod back to where it all originated from as well.
Cool. Well, let's go back. I know I knocked you off track with the square, but that was a good
No,
conversation.
no, I think that's brilliant. I think it's really interesting, and I love to hear other people's response to seeing it, because it might be something I've never thought of. And I love the fact, Jeff, you used the word discipline, because even having no discipline is kind of a discipline. Influences, as I mentioned, Brooke Shaden. A big thing for me is, you know, when you're trying to find your style and find your place in the world, is if you're drawn to work by other artists or other people, and it doesn't even have to be photography, it could be different arts, it gives you an indication where you're going. And a big thing for me is I will contact people, you know, I will email if there's email there on the website. You know, if there's someone's work I like, I will go ahead and contact them and I'll say, hey, I love your work. And there's an Irish photographer, Seamus Murphy. I have some of his books there. There's a book there with PJ Harvey, the musician. There's people like that whose work I'm drawn to, and I'll often contact them. And when you get an email back, it's amazing. So Brooke is one of those people who will contact you back, and, you know, and you can have conversations. And I really like that human aspect you know, and the same with Seamus. I've emailed him once or twice, but he'll always email back and we'll get into a little discussion about something. And I just love that sort of connect. So for me, anyone whose work I admire, and then maybe I contact them and we can get into a conversation, and they just go up in my esteem, really, you know. So Brooke is definitely one of those people. And the way she works and sort of just her sort of honesty and principles, I just really, really admire those. So it was great. She did it. Sony sponsored a tour last year, which meant that she got to go worldwide, specifically Europe. So as soon as I saw the London date, I was there. I was so there. It was brilliant. And again, inspiration. I just find when you're doing or you're coming up with strong imagery, poetry, I find mirrors conceptual art, or, you know, that type of thing. It mirrors it really, really well, because they're both in the business of distilling moments or emotions or whatever. You know, when you read a good poem and there could be a line in it or an image in it that you just go, wow, it just, you know, it's like a sucker punch or something like that. And that's where I find an awful lot of inspiration. And there's an American poet there, Gertrude Schnackenberg. I was reading one of her poems, and it was just this great imagery of a sort of a place where unlit flames are kept. And, you know, it just stuck in my head, and I just thought, that's so unusual. I mean, you know, what if flames, when we blow out a candle, what if they weren't extinguished? What if they were just placed somewhere until the next time we need the candle lit? You know, what if it's a sort of an ongoing thing? And that's really where I got the idea for the book, which I'll show you some bits and pieces. But as lockdown sort of came in around March, I had already done a bookmark with a local poet, and really enjoyed working with her. And as I said, I love the idea of poetry and sort of conceptual photography sort of being paired together. So we had got chatting, and she was in lockdown in her bubble, and I was in lockdown in my bubble with my family. And we decided, well, let's keep going. I also, at the time, and I still do, have a sort of a photography group on Facebook. Now there's only about 5 or 6 of us, but we were kind of doing this thing where I'd set a theme and a challenge each week. And what we did is I was doing the same with the poet, and she was writing poems in response to lockdown, and I was creating images. And sort of March, April, May, we started thinking, we've got something here. But exhibitions, they just weren't going to be on the table with the situation, the way things were, with people not being able to meet up. So it came about that we were going to put it together. We were going to self-publish, basically. We decided we want to get this out here this year. We're going to self-publish. She'd already self-published her first book of poetry, so that wasn't too hard to organize. But I just thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I could send Brooke Shaden a PDF, the sort of the draft of the book and the poems, and if she had the time to look at these, to read the poems, and maybe even write the introduction. It was dream material. I just thought, I'm going to try it out. I'm going to send Brooke the email. And as I said, she's just so amazing. And I'll just read you a bit from the introduction that she wrote, because I think she explains it really well, how poetry and conceptual photography go together. I have always believed poetry is in all things, midsummer and dead of winter, warm silence and booming thunder. Those are the obvious poetics of the world. Underneath the beautiful are the solemn and the hidden, the dark underbelly of things not seen with our eyes or understood with our minds at first glance. They are the tortured feelings and the pains of the world. They are poetry all the same, but a different sort, quiet and waiting. So she just talks about the rhythms and exploring the world, and the fact is that the beauty of poetry and imagery is one hints and the other directs. And it was just mind-blowing to have, again, you're showing your work to somebody you admire. So there's an element of, oh, I wonder how this is going to go. But it was just the thoughts of her writing the introduction just overwhelmed or over, you know, that was more important to me, rather than, I said, you know what, I'll send it and we'll see what happens. So I had sort of that faith to do that. Figuring out my message, recurring themes and personal work. I don't know if you guys, have you spotted in your own personal work that you'll light subjects in a certain way, or you'll have go-to sort of, you know, ways of working or photographing? Or, I mean, I find I always tend to have light somewhere. So I love that whole idea. Again, it's harking back to the photographic of looking for light and that type of thing. But I know I've always sort of had, no matter what situation my subject's in, which is usually my daughter, there's always light there. And this one sort of, this image here, glass ceiling, is about challenging myself with new techniques, but it turned out to be a really powerful message that has, you know, I've had a great response from, because obviously you've got that female element of breaking the glass ceiling as well. But really I was looking at, you know, getting a levitation shot and, you know, bringing in all these different elements. But, you know, I just found that when it printed, one of the galleries that I work with in Dublin, they wanted it really, really big, about, what did we say, over 1 meter by 1 meter.
So it's about 40 inches by 40 inches or so.
Yeah.
So speaking of elements, do you have a library of stock images that you've shot over time, or do you go out like here? Did you go out and shoot the walls and the painting and all specifically for this?
Yeah, for this particular image, I had already shot the room. So then I shot my model and then I put the two together. But I find that is part of the process. I don't use stock images. Initially, it was because, you know, bought in stock images. Initially, I didn't do that because I was entering competitions, and it's very important that you're the author of all the elements. And it just started from there. And then what's happened is that because I have to come into contact with everything that I use in an image, it's sort of now become part of the process. So if I sketch out, I don't know, a girl in the forest, I sketched out pine trees the other week, and I was like, I realized I didn't have any pine trees in my library, so I had to go find some and photograph them and everything. So you know, the whole thing for me is about the journey, not the destination. So for me, I love putting together an image. I love figuring it out. I love going and finding all the different elements and problem solving. You know, if I don't have a golden set of scales to shrink a model and sit her in one of the bowls, I'll have to go make something or find something or whatever. So the whole process for me is every bit of it is important, you know. So I just put some of these images, which they're in the book as well. Just to share the type of work I do. And this particular image, my daughter was in a lake. So I find that, and I got her sort of coming up out of the lake. I find that I enjoy, if I can get the model to you know, the less Photoshop I have to use, the better. I'm getting lazier as I get older and get more into it. So, you know, of course you can sort of make out that someone's in water and underwater, and I've done that before, but I just loved the fact that this was her coming out of the lake and it was all dripping water and everything like that. So, again, this is my children a couple of times over. I don't have that many children. But, yeah. But with this one, it was one of the poems in the book talks about storytelling and the roar of the ocean. So again, this is sort of shots, you know, when I go out anywhere, I've got the camera, I'm photographing skies, I'm photographing the sea, I'm photographing whatever I can, and then I'm including those elements. And even with this image now, I would have made some Photoshop brushes, and so there would be some spirals and concentric circles and things like that from Newgrange that I've brought into this image. So as I said, it's all part of the process, and it's all layered up. to sort of give it that sort of quality and that painterly sort of quality.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I've noticed that almost all of your images have this misty, ethereal quality about them. Is that your style?
I guess it probably is right now, because I shoot my textures as well. So I'll always have an element where I want to blur things. I'll have favorite textures, and one of them was a smoke bomb that I let off in front of a black sheet. So I was photographing, so I would have my own smoke textures and things. So yeah, that's part of it as well. It gives that sort of ethereal, sort of mysterious look. And I'll put loads and loads of textures, but I'll bring the opacity right down and just put loads and loads of layers in there. I find horsehair is great for looking like paintbrush strokes and things. So, and you know, it is definitely part of the style. Horsehair, horsehair or animal fur is great, because when you add it in as a texture on top, it looks like little brush strokes. So I found that works really well. You know, anything texturized. Even you can shoot stuff on your phone if all you have with you is your phone. But I mean, there'll often be times, especially if you're doing camera club outings with people, and you know, the weather could be terrible and there's nothing to photograph, and the landscape you've gone to photograph, it's just an absolute washout.
Rain on the windows.
Like that. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So this is this whole idea of, you know, if you have a camera in your hand or whatever, shoot whatever you can. Shoot the concrete on the ground, moss or fungus growing on a wall. All these things, you know, nothing is, you know, anytime you go out with your camera, just, you know, if the sky is not great or you don't get the right subject, see if you can photograph a texture. It's that whole sort of getting into that mindset of just something positive coming out of everything.
I see Jeff says, "Wahoo, I bought time."
Oh, thank you, Jeff.
And Paul Bannon is asking if you ever look for faces in the clouds when you photograph smoke.
Oh, I love that. I love the idea of that. I was actually, funny enough, I was reading about clouds the other day. There's a Georgia O'Keeffe painting with loads of clouds from above, and it was fabulous. Yeah, in Ireland we have this wonderful soft light, and it's created by just a white sky. Most of the time all we have is white clouds, that just, you know, the blanket clouds. So it's perfect for photographing things on the ground because it's the best soft box ever. But it's less often that we get lovely clouds that you could start picking faces out of and things like that, you know.
Back in September, I got to fly over the fires happening in California and Oregon and photograph them from an airplane, and I caught a few different faces in them. It was really quite interesting to see.
Wow.
And Gregory Edwards also bought time.
Oh,
Julie,
thank you, Gregory.
Julie, can I ask,
Hi.
how do you organize and keep track of all of these photographs so you can find them later, a year from now, 2 years from now, and say, hey, I want to find that cloud that I once saw?
Yeah, a couple of years back, I watched a great tutorial on YouTube by Aaron Nace, and he went through how he organizes everything through Lightroom. And
Aaron Nace is Phlearn, for those who don't know him, Phlearn.
So he has a great technique or an organization system. And I started doing that a couple of years back, and I've stuck to it. So basically, every time you have a shoot, you have your captures, masters, output, selects, folders go into it. And basically, it's a system that I learned, and I'm sure it might be still up on YouTube. I mean, it'd be a couple of years old now. But that system, I'm importing into Lightroom, and I'm organizing everything that way. And then I will often, if I have, like, I'll have one folder that's favorite textures, and I might have one folder that's favorite skies. But another thing with me is I don't shoot an awful lot of photographs. If I go out with my camera, I'm not the type of photographer to spray and pray, basically, is what they call it here. I wouldn't come back with 3,000, 4,000 images from a shoot. I just the thoughts of trying to sort through that it's just too much. So I'm very much a photographer who I will go out and I will do 7 shots and I will come back of my model because I have pre-visualized it. I know what sort of look I'm looking for or position I'm looking for. So, you know, I mean, I would have been great in the film days because I wouldn't have used a lot of film. But, you know, I think that's part of pre-visualization helps then see has a knock-on effect that when I'm sorting through my images, suddenly I might have 42 images of a sky, and that would be my whole favorites folder that I'm using for my works, you know, now. So I suppose it's a mixture of not taking thousands of images with my camera to go through and using up all that storage space, and then having a sort of a good system. And like I said, I might have 7,000 images, but they could be for over a couple of years, you know, so I find it fairly easy to find stuff, you know, and as I said, it's mainly because I don't shoot an awful lot of images when I do go out to shoot. I know what I'm looking for, and if I don't see it, I might shoot a texture and come home.
And I think the key is having a really good system like you have and the discipline to stay with it.
Yeah.
Again, discipline.
Discipline. That's the word
Have
of the
you
day
s-
for Jeff.
Have you seen the work of Richard Horowitz?
No, can you put the link up in the chat or something so I can see it?
Some of what your work looks like reminds me of Richard.
Okay.
The models in the cardboard box remind me of, I am probably going to get this wrong, Ruth.
Bernard.
Ruth Bernard.
Ruth Bernard.
Yeah, of that cardboard box, that horizontal, and the nude is in the cardboard box.
Yeah. I'm writing all this down, you see.
I've got that
was
hanging on my wall here.
Ooh, the model or the picture?
The picture, the Ruth Bernhard.
The cardboard box.
Yeah. Oh. Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I put Richard's.
I will look her up.
You would,
Richard's,
you would really like Richard Horowitz website.
Yeah, Jeff and I both put it in the chat, so we can look at that later.
Yeah. Okay.
Brilliant. That was a creepy guy in Comic-Con, and I put him out. Put my daughter in a cage. And again, you do these things, and then and people come up to you and they love it. Like, I know a woman, and she loves this image, absolutely loves it. It creeps me out, but she loves it. Again, a lot of textures in there and blurring, and all that sort of stuff. Really, for me, I love pixels, and I love sort of looking after my pixels and protecting. That's why I do a lot of layers in Photoshop, and I try and, you know, capture in RAW as many pixels as I can, and I try and look after them as best I can. And then, of course, when you're adding in textures and things like that, you're adding to the file size and that type of thing. But I just, you know, my technique, I will do a lot to the images, but I'll always be keeping an eye on the histogram. And if I start seeing gaps, it's like, whoa, okay, I need to go back. As I just don't like that. And then that stood to me. I've always had that sort of, as I say, Jeff, discipline. Write that down. That's what I have. So my discipline has always been to sort of create images, not huge amounts of them, but create images that are good quality. And now I'm finding that because I've always done this, I can even go back into my catalog and blow these up to the 40-inch by 40-inch, because I've always had that sort of ethos of, you know, looking after those pixels. And my canvas will be about 6,000 pixels by 6,000 pixels at 360 ppi. So I find that, you know, okay, my file sizes do go pretty big pretty quick. But it just means when you want to go big, you can go big, you know.
I see Jeff also added Parish Kalaneem's URL to the chat.
Yeah, I'm surprised Nuller didn't mention him. Nuller likes to collect photographers like he
Butterflies.
collects antiques. But Parrish is another fellow that does really nice composite work. And he was a Canon explorer, right, Mueller?
Yes.
How about Michel Cherevkov? Would you add him
Yeah,
in there?
Michel.
Michelle does the same thing, but I think the father of all this really was Ben Rose. Ben Rose used to take, and this is way before digital. Used to have a pin register set in his darkroom and work with 8x10 sheets of color film and make each one of the images on that pin
Yeah,
register.
and another one to look up is Maggie Taylor.
Oh, yeah, she's great.
I know we keep interrupting you with these things, but they come
Oh,
to
I'm writing
mind.
all
And
these down. This is what
Good.
I'm here for. You thought you were going to learn from me, when in fact I'm here to pick all your brains.
Great. That's the way it works.
No, I love it. I
Who
absolutely,
is Maggie's
especially
husband?
Yulesman.
Jerry Yulesman. I'm just drawing a
Yeah,
blank on it.
Jerry Yulesman.
Jerry Yulesman, all film,
Yeah.
all pre-digital.
Ex-husband.
Okay, I didn't
Oh,
realize that.
excellent. Oh.
Anyway, back to your achieving your goals and working with galleries.
Yeah, and again, this relates back to there being no instruction book or manual when you get into all of this. It's very hard to know sometimes what is it you want to achieve, and that for me was kind of figuring it out was important. And one of the exercises we did with Brooke over in London, and funny enough, I spoke to a friend since coming back, and she does it every year with her family. And basically it's an exercise that I think is really, really helpful. It helped me an awful lot. And basically you write a letter to yourself a year from now, and you just say, like, "Dear Julie, what a year, well done you, congratulations on blank, it's what you've always wanted, who knew it would lead to blank." So my friend, she does this with her family, and they have like a little box, and everybody sort of puts in this sort of note to themselves to be open next year. And I just found it a really useful exercise, and it really worked for me, because initially back in 2019 I would have written this letter to myself in a year's time, and it was like, congratulations on getting an exhibition, it's what you've always wanted. And the fact that I had to sit down and write this to myself, I was able to start thinking about, right, okay, I think this is what I really want to, the direction I really want to head into, which is rather than sort of sticking with sort of just the photography side of things, I actually wanted to look at galleries and bringing conceptual photography into some Irish galleries. So there's a great class that Brooke has, and this is how I got involved in all of this, was Holger and the galleries discussion, which will be continuing, I think, next week
On Thursday.
Julie,
yeah, Thursday.
how far into Europe do your images go in terms of galleries?
Well, so far I'm only in this just over a year, so far I know definitely UK. A lot of the galleries, especially Belfast and Enniskillen, they would have connects with galleries in the UK. So I'm not sort of, as far as I know, well, I do have I know one of my works is in Luxembourg hanging on a wall, but that would be bought from a gallery in Enniskillen and brought over. So far nothing, as far as I know, only bar the one that I definitely know is in Luxembourg.
Cool.
And are you looking to expand into other areas, other regions of the world?
Absolutely. I think it's important to keep moving forward, because you don't know who you're going to meet, how it's going to influence your work. I enjoy I enjoy, in the same way I like responding to things like poetry and creating works, I love to hear feedback from people who've seen something that I've made. It's like a circle. It's like it's coming full circle. So there's no point my images sitting on my computer. I want them to be printed and I want them to go out there. So I would love them to be all over the world, and I would love to, hear what people think, or when someone says, oh, I saw that piece and it spoke to me in that moment. That's kind of just like the pinnacle.
Yeah, I see Teresa put some names also in the chat for people to look at. And Melissa got a copy of Time as well. I should start charging
Oh.
a commission here.
Well, guys, don't forget, you can there's PayPal as well for John's conversations if you want to donate and keep supporting the conversations, which I think
thank
is
you.
just brilliant. Yeah, so yeah, it's there's so many things to do, but yeah, it was a lot of my goals. I discovered them by writing that letter to myself.
Mhm.
And then I repeated the process the following year. There's a letter sealed up in my desk.
And Cheryl just put in a website where you can write a future message to yourself.
Oh, fab. So it will email to you? It
That
might
are emailed to you in the future, yes.
And we're coming up to the new year.
Yes, you can pick a date in the future, a specific date. You could do 1 year from now, 5 years from now, or pick a date, write the message. And on that date, it will send you the email of your message.
Oh,
Nice.
that is brilliant. Okay, everybody, it is the start of the new year.
And Jeff is asking if you make your own prints.
I don't make my own prints because number one, I'm a starving artist. Number two, I absolutely adore prints, and I don't have this expertise at this stage in my career. And it was something that was really important to me to find a print house that would be able to basically do my images justice.
Do you have someone
really,
local?
really lucky. Yeah, he's fairly local. He's only about maybe 30 miles away, not too far. And so he's registered with the Epson Digigraphy system. So basically he has the big super duper Epson printer that is connected to the computer in Germany. And he does that for me. And I like the control there because there's the whole, checking the colors and the paper and the additions. So I set the additions. So I'm very lucky that I do have a print house not too far from me. And my computer, when I send over the files, I'm happy with the print. So whatever, I don't know, whatever magic is happening, because
it's working
I'm afraid,
for you.
Yeah, I'm afraid to check it with the color monkey, whatever. It's working, so I don't want to mess with it. So yeah, no, I would love to sort of maybe medium-term plans, have a look at something like that, because for me, the finished product is the print. So even when I'm finished an image here on my screen, it's not, I'd love to be able to just, send it to a printer and see it printed, within the space of minutes rather than the space of a couple of days before I pick it up. But again, it's about me knowing my limitations, knowing that I don't have the super duper printer I need for my images, at the resolution they're at. The 16-bit tips I send over to him, because I'm just trying the whole time to sort of as well future-proof my work. So I'm trying to work as big as I can without Photoshop crashing on me or my storage being astronomical prices for the online storage or whatever.
John Sains is asking another question here. How important is the scale and size in the creation of your work?
Oh, for the prints, or just, I mean, with what I'm working on, it's all 6,000 pixels by 6,000 pixels at 360. That's my go-to canvas in Photoshop. So that's what I start with. I'm photographing with a full frame Mark III Canon camera with a Sigma art lens, and I use a prime lens. So this is another thing with me having this discipline. I use the same focal length for everything I shoot, whether it's a birdcage prop or the model or the background. It's all a 50mm lens. So I find they all fit in together really, really well because I'm not mixing up my focal
That's it?
lengths. So,
Just a 50 mm lens?
yeah.
Julie, I was actually coming from the standpoint of the final product after you've done the creation and you've fulfilled your vision. How important is, some people think, oh, well, I don't have a lot of space and I want an 8x10. And that might not be the way you want to express yourself. And it's like, no, I'm going to sell this only in a 2 foot by 3 foot size or larger. How important is that to convey, I guess, in some of your gallery presentations to people who aren't familiar with this?
Yeah.
John, you stopped in late. All of her work is square, just so you know. Too.
Okay. Oh, well,
Yeah.
my bad. My
No,
bad.
I
No,
know,
you're okay.
I know.
Hi, John. Yeah, so I mean, size-wise, I started off with the 10" by 10". And that was mainly because the galleries I was working with, that was the size that they could comfortably display. And I thought it was quite a neat little size and it's handy. But then this big gallery in Dublin, they were like, no, we've big walls to fill. We need to go as big as you can. And it was just nerve-wracking going to pick up those first prints that were so big. And when I saw them, I just loved them so much. They were just amazing to see them that big. So I mean, it's hard to, it's you know, it depends on the size of the gallery, I suppose, and it depends on what size the customer wants. I mean, each of my prints is available in 3 sizes: a small, medium, and large.
Okay.
As I said, I've discovered that the large is amazing. So, you know, anyone who has the room for a large, go for it.
Do
Starving
you do
artists
numbered
here.
editions or are they all
Yeah.
open editions?
No, they're all numbered. So again, keeping everything disciplined and simple. 10 by 10 is in a limited edition of 10. The 20" by 20", which is the medium size, is a limited edition to 5. And then the 40" by 40" is a limited edition to 2. So it's the same for every image. So there, and that again, as John was saying, they're all square. I know in this artist statement they've been cropped a bit, but they're all square, so I can afford to have these 3 sizes: small, medium, large, have these edition sizes of 10 out of 5 out of 2, and it just keeps things simple for me, and I think it keeps things simple for the galleries, and it keeps it flexible at the same time.
So you're shooting with a Canon DSLR?
Yeah, 5D Mark III, secondhand. I was told, buy the glass new. Don't worry about the camera body. Get the glass new. So I got the glass new and I got the camera body secondhand.
Totally agree with that.
This is absolutely driving Nuller nuts. And you're using a used camera and a 50mm lens. And that's
No. I understand that. I understand that. I agree with. I mean, I'm sitting around here with a very old Canon D30. Believe it or not.
The first one?
And
coal power.
Where the hell did you get that, Nuller?
It was given to me. It was actually, wait a minute, I have a D30 and a D60. The D60 was given to me by Douglas Kirkland. And the D30, I don't know, I think I fell off a truck. Anyway, so you're taking this 24 by 36 millimeter area sensor, and all of your images are square, and you can blow these things up to 40 inches.
Yep.
Right.
Now you don't
That's
actually have to use.
That,
you could start with a bigger canvas because she's doing composites, so not everything has to fill the frame.
Okay, never mind. Okay. I'm slow today. I'm old and I'm.
You're getting old.
Today.
Yeah, and getting closer every day. Yeah. Okay. Huh. So how much bigger do you think you can blow the your images?
I really would love to find out. My guy, his printer with the roll of paper he's using can only go. Actually, he can only go by 40 by 40. It's actually the clarity glass that's preventing us from going bigger at the moment. At the moment, he just gets in the sheets of the non-reflective clarity glass. That's
Yeah.
what we use. And that's the biggest size he can go to. I think it's about 41, 42 inches or something like that. So 40 by 40 is basically, I've asked him, and that's as far as I can go with him, unless we look into bigger panes of glass. So I would love to find out the answer to that.
You know, years ago, a lot of years ago, when digital first came out, a lot of years ago, I had this question about how big can you go before you actually get that pixelation, so to speak. And I just had the people that would build the Canon booth. I gave an image to a guy, and I said, I just want you to blow up the same area of the file, print it out, and put it on different levels so that people could see the steps before it really got to look like, let's say, Tri-X. And at the very beginning, you could blow these things up to 20 by 24s. And I'm going back the original digital cameras. So you can have your printer take a section of your print, your image, and blow it as if it was a, I don't know, 60 by 60, 80 by 80.
Yeah, and then but that also comes down to viewing distance too. How close are you going to get to it? I mean, people tend to go up to photographs and look at them real close, as opposed to paintings where they stand back and look at them.
Let them go, you know, and then
So,
the grease from their nose makes it blend together
anyway,
better.
Jeff put in a link to an article about finding the right resolution, so we can go take that offline. Get back to Julie.
The interesting thing, Julie, is that you are printing on, correct me if I'm wrong, you're printing on watercolor paper?
Yeah, it's I'm just looking at it here. It is Hahnemühle William Turner 310,
Hahnemühle.
or it's the Hahnemühle, or it's the German etch. So usually the German etch I really like.
So I will guarantee you that with a little bit of post-processing, you can take your final image that is printed at 9696 and double it.
Wow.
And the reason I say that, there's this application called Gigapixel
From Topaz.
from Topaz, which if you have something that looks good at 360, you literally 2x is a no-brainer. Plus the fact you've got the ability to go back in and to do some localized crisping. When I say crisping, I mean making your texture a little bit sharper. When you do your layered textures, that can actually greatly aid the ability to upsample. Because I did a bunch of stuff from my iPhone, because I got a bunch of nice iPhone shots.
Don't tell Mueller.
40 by 40 prints, because I upsampled the underlying image and then layered. I've got about 14 gigs worth of different textures. I collect textures like stray cats, I guess. But I love the textures of your work as well. But when you lay that on top of the watercolor, I will guarantee you that you can do at least double, maybe higher, because the underlying watercolor paper itself then becomes the texture. And Bruce Fraser, who John knows or knew, said that basically the intended viewing distance for photographers is limited only by the length of their nose. Photographers will walk right up and look at a print, but they're not going to buy it from you. So who the fuck cares what they think?
Right.
It's the collector and the people that want your work that you care about. And the intended viewing distance is literally, you can actually calculate what the required resolution is based upon the resolution of your eye. And that article that I posted is something that I wrote that it's almost a decade old, but it hasn't changed because people's eyes have not changed. So check it out, Julie. You can
I
definitely
will.
go much bigger.
Hey,
Oh,
And
that's
your
fabulous.
work would hang, would you would be able to walk right into your work. I think it would look very nice large.
right.
Wow.
Jeff,
Okay.
I have an ancillary question for you on this thing with Topaz. If you have an image and put it and use Topaz to sharpen it, all right, can you then take that sharpened image and put it into gigapixel?
Yeah, no, you'd want to get the base resolution up and then sharpen it after the fact, because sharpening at that level is creative sharpening, and you'd want to sharpen some areas and soften others. So you want to do the upsampling first, and then the post-production.
Yeah, Topaz recommends the last thing you do is the sharpening.
Everyone recommends that.
Okay.
But back to Julie.
Hey. I think this is fabulous. And that's
Great.
going to be, maybe I'm going to write that in my letter for next year. Wow, I can't believe I got those prints so big. You could see them from space.
I don't know if that you can get it that big, but
Aim for the sky, aim for the sky. Looking for ways to connect collaborative projects. I think this is really handy, especially if you find somebody who you enjoy working with, or you can sort of creative play together. So for me, that's worked in the form of the book, which I'll go on to. It's yeah, making lemonade. That's why I call this one Making Lemonade, when you get lemons. It's tricky because you know, myself and Fidel were very creative, and there were a lot of people who did get work out there, or got books, or got started on projects. And then there's
And
people
Fidel
who did
is
so.
the poet.
Yeah, Fidel she's brilliant. She's just a gaggle of laughs. And I have a YouTube channel now. There's no major subscribers or anything to it, but every week what we did during this sort of second lockdown is we actually went out and I did a bit of videoing, because I got her to read the poems from the book, and then I would splice it up in very quickly in iMovie. So anyone who's into their video stuff, I know that's terrible to say I've been using iMovie, but I just find it really handy to be able
I
to
use
put my
iMovie
images
to
in
edit
there.
all these, so don't worry about it.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So I just wanted a method where I could record Fidel reading the poems from the book, and then the accompanying image, I could splice it in there. So we've been releasing one every week, and then on Wednesday, the last poem for 2020 is 2020 Memories. So yeah, I just always try and make the best of whatever situation I'm in, and if something's not working out, I just try and go a different way at it. Like exhibitions, we still have plans for the exhibitions when that becomes a possibility. It's really important as an artist for your CV to have exhibitions and have them in different locations. And again, you know, I could look for funding and see how big I could get some of these prints done, because that's really that. I'll be taking that away. I'll be putting that in my letter to myself. But that's, yeah. And InDesign, I never used it before. We were cutting costs as wherever we could, so I said, sure, I'll design the book as well. So I had to quickly learn InDesign and the joy of page numbers and ordering things and this, that, and the other. And a really handy or really great thing that happened was we actually did contact our local arts officer in Cavan, and Katrina O'Reilly, and she was a great fountain of knowledge and advice. And there's a thing that happens here, actually it's happening in a few countries now. It's Culture Night in September, It's every year, and it's museums, galleries, all sorts of places are open until midnight. And of course, with COVID this year, it sort of moved to online events, but there was some money in the kitty to help us with publishing the books, so that really helped. And to have that support and the context there was really, really good. And I spoke a bit about this with Holger's talk on galleries, and how in Ireland there is supports out there for artists. I mean, there's a lot of artists really struggling, especially in the performance arts, but there is stuff out there, and we're coming into grant season now, where you put together your proposals, and fingers crossed you get a bit of support. But no, the book this year was just amazing, and as I said, to have Brooke Shaden write the introduction was just mind blowing. And again, it's another way of getting my art out there. And thank you to everyone who's bought a copy of the book, but it's just a really handy way of seeing an awful lot of my work for a very low price.
So how do you keep creative?
How do I what?
How do you keep creative, especially this year?
Keep creative. The photography group that I had, as I mentioned on Facebook, it was just a little group of about 5 or 6 of us, and it was a weekly challenge. And so there's over a year's worth of challenges, actually. I would just set up every Sunday evening at 10 p.m. I would schedule a post, and I just pick something. Like, for instance, the image with that's my daughter Anya in the boxes. That was to do with separation, and COVID and that type of thing. So, I give everybody a week to come up with something, and if you come up with something, you do, and if you don't, you don't. There's no pressure there.
Yeah.
But by the end of the year, you end up with a couple of images, and there was
Julie, what was the concept? What was the concept around the 3 models in the cardboard box?
Well, it's only the one model.
Well, I'm looking at 3, but okay, I understand that. But
I'll show you how it's made in the.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, we're going to cover that in a minute.
Okay.
I'm going to show you. I have a speed edit, and there's a bit of music goes with it, so you might want to turn down your.
Did you select to share music, or do we need to restart the share?
I selected it to share
okay,
music.
Great.
I think. But sure, if there's no music, we'll just talk. Anyone can sing, can they? But the boxes, I shot that. It was a chair from IKEA. I know you guys love IKEA too. And it was great. The best thing about the chair was it came with a big old fashioned box, because so many things nowadays don't come with a box. So I just shot her in a room, it's natural light, in just different poses inside the box. As you see, it was a blue dress she had on her. And so I just had this shoot with maybe about, we'll say 24 shots of her in the box in different poses. And it was just, I didn't really know what to do with them for a while. And then when I had this sort of challenge, as I said, with separation and COVID and that type of thing, it inspired me to use the shoot. And really, you've got the magic number 3 there. I mean, I love 1s, 3s, 5s, any odd numbers are really, really good. And I just love the way they actually really naturally, you'll see in the video, but they really naturally all fitted together. There wasn't too much messing about with those images. So that was really kind of it. It was either I was going to do 1 or I was going to do 3. And I thought 3 was a little more unusual. And then I liked the way she's, the box at the top is kind of off center a little bit. So, it was the theme of separation really kicked it off for me, because I already had the shots. I just wasn't sure what they were there for until I realized that she was separated.
Very nice. Beautiful.
Thank you. Let's see, I don't know if this will still have the sound on it. There's no sound, you can just
No, you can hear it.
So this was the beach in Donegal.
beautiful. It's just beautiful. Beautiful.
Mikey
Very
likes
nice.
it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And it's simple, and you'll see there, I'm just using in Photoshop, I'm just using curves most of the time. So if you see any of Brooke's classes, you'll see all those techniques. And I love painting my mask with my Wacom tablet. I know you can select things. It's not that I don't trust the selection tools, but I don't trust the selection tools. I just find it you know the way that adult coloring books became a thing and people find it really relaxing. Well, there's nothing better than sitting down with something that needs to be cut out and taking your Wacom pen and just sitting there and playing your favorite music and just, going with it.
And you created the music for that slideshow right there, right?
Yeah, I created the music for that, and I've a few videos up on my YouTube channel, and I just find it easier. Again, it's just a sort of a program where you can put together your own music, and it's just so much easier because you
You're
don't
a
have
bundle of
licensing
talent.
problems.
You are really a bundle of talent.
I'm just a problem solver. I'm just a cheapskate. I live in Cavan too long. I just won't pay licenses for music, and I won't pay videographers to video my poet reading the poems. So I just go out and do it all myself.
Well, I must say you've raised the bar around here.
Oh, thank you.
Julie, I do have a question on your website.
Oh,
okay.
So for example, on your website, you give no indication you have a YouTube channel. I find that interesting.
It's, do you know what? It's probably the little icons. Is there little red icons across the bottom? They're probably not. It's a subtle WordPress
I see
site,
it.
and I think
All right.
I might
am
need to be less
corrected.
subtle.
Yeah, I didn't
might wanna
recognize it
call
as
that
a
out with words.
I'm too subtle.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't
I
recognize
know.
it
I'm
as a
being
YouTube
too
logo myself.
arty farty and putting it.
And then
too
the other
nice
question I have is when I don't see an actual portfolio image by image presentation. Is that
No,
something
not,
that? Pardon?
No, you have to buy my. No, you have to buy my prints.
Okay. No, I'm I understand.
I know.
But
I said that's something that and when you do your own websites and you do your own stuff, and I've gone between having portfolios up there with my work and not, and in a kind of a way, I just want I like to go searching for things and figuring things out, and the people who like my work should like that too. In a funny kind of way. If you click on the galleries, they will have my page. Well, two of them anyway. Sol Art, they have my work that's with them when you click their link, and then the other one is the artisan one. But you're right, I don't actually have like a carousel, or I don't really have anything.
Well, I'm not
on the
suggesting
website.
that you have to put all of your stuff up. But for example, on the click where you have the limited edition prints, the actual image of your print framed with the deckled edge that is on one of the galleries.
Yeah.
I think that would be a gorgeous place to put an image that you could rotate that image every once in a while. You understand?
I'll do that.
So that people can see what that print would look like. And then have a link that you could click that and have somebody go buy the damn print.
Brilliant idea. Thank you.
So I'm not saying having a whole portfolio, but you are ultimately a print maker. You're a photographer, you're an image maker, but ultimately your art is the print. And I think it would be useful and important to have a really glorious rendering of your image in the print form that people could see and admire, because then they have a better understanding of what it looks like. Because nothing on your website can you actually see the richness of the texture that you're layering in.
Yeah, brilliant. And I might have some shots actually. I took of some of them frames, so I'm going to work on that this week.
Yeah, the other thing that seems to be missing is an about page.
I'm about. I suppose I could put an about page.
Yeah, bio of some sort.
Yeah, I know. I do have a bio that I send out to galleries and this, that, and the other. But I can stick that up there. That wouldn't be too difficult to do. I'm writing all this down. This is great.
Oh, now I see your images on Flickr.
Oh, geez, I haven't updated that in a while. There's some old stuff on there.
Okay.
I use
for
Flickr.
surfing.
Yeah, no, it's cool. This is usually what I do to other people, so I should be able to sit here and smile and just take it because I dish it out all the time. I use Flickr, interesting enough, because there's not recent stuff on it, but what I do is I have secret albums. So, you know, a lot of my images that I'm really happy with, I will actually upload them to Flickr in a secret album. So I have an extra place should the worst happen to my computer or to my iCloud storage or to my
Because the
external
other
hard
thing that
disk.
I'd say is I would love to see one of your videos embedded in your website, because
Oh, I could
just
do that,
watching that video made me think, you know, that is gorgeous. And I love these videos, and YouTube is a nice place to store them, but to be able to see it, because, you know, I really like your work, Julie. So
Oh, thank you, Jeff.
I'm a
Well,
fan. Well, I bought your book while you were talking. That's
thank
why.
you. And I've already signed it. You don't realize this. I've signed it and everything.
Oh, did you?
I think they're all signed. Yeah, it's been signed
Okay.
and everything.
Multitasking.
Yeah.
Well, I just, love the fact that there are more women image makers, photographers these days. And I think that's one of the democratization of the technology. Photoshop doesn't care whether you're a man or a woman.
They just care if you have money. Gotta buy it every year.
And there's another lady that I've met recently, Kate Bricky, that I'm going to put her website in, because she does images similar to yours, but completely different, if that makes sense. She has a sensitivity that I think you would like and appreciate.
Well, thank you for that. I've just opened the chat here, so I've loads of notes to take. This is brilliant.
And right here in our audience, we have Teresa Meyer, who's going to be on here in a few weeks too.
Hey, Teresa.
Hi. Good to see everybody.
You too. I'm looking forward to that. And Ellen Friedlander is going to be here too in January. So keep watching along. Anyone else have any comments for Julie or questions?
I'm curious about one thing as far as on some of the techniques in the video, and I enjoyed that very much. I noticed that you would layer on textures, and then it looked like you would take a mask to bring out more of the detail from the boxes.
Yeah.
How important is, I'm curious, is like, why wouldn't you just take the box, hide the box layers, layer in all your masks to get that rich detail in the background, and then layer that stuff back in there? How important is that in your process to kind of give a little more texture and stuff to your images?
Yeah, it's kind of important. It's all about pre-visualizing what you're trying to create. So very often I will obviously I've got my subject and stuff separate to the background. So sometimes I will put a lot of textures on the background and get that right, and then I'll put, you know, the subject in there. And yeah, there is a lot of brushing, especially skin. I tend to brush the textures off the skin, but I don't like it exactly perfect. I don't. There's a Japanese term for it. I know somebody has to know. Maybe Michael. I don't know. There's a Japanese term where something's not quite perfect, and I like having the texture go over everything. I'll make texture brushes, so I might use a texture brush then to brush off the texture, and I just do it then by eye and see. So it's not as simple as just maybe having the subject separate to the background layer. I like to put the textures over the whole lot then, and then just brush off. It's a bit like if you were to maybe sharpen some areas and soften other areas. I find that texture can also help do that. Some textures, especially those smoky textures, it's nearly like you're dodging and burning when you're sort of playing around with the masks. And you just get a different look. And then, you know, you sort of denoise it a little bit, and then you put on more textures and you just build it up. And I think the more textures, the richer it gets. So I find that if I was to do it just in a couple of layers, it's not really the same. It's a little bit of just trial and error and flipping textures and changing opacities and blend modes and all sorts of things. But again, still keeping it kind of simple. And it depends on the image. Each image is completely different. Some have very little textures, some are full of textures. It just really depends what the image needs.
Yeah,
It's
so
keeping
John
it
Wallace and Jeff said wabi sabi.
Yep,
Wabi
that's it.
sabi.
Yeah.
So in a sense,
Julie.
you're kind of keeping it organic and kind of feeling your way through it as you work through a piece and deciding, yes, that works, or no, it doesn't. You pull that layer back out, maybe layer something in, and
because digital's so
deciding-
perfect. The pixels are so perfect when they come out of the camera and they're so perfect.
Oh,
I'm
exactly.
I'm trying to bring in sort of organic things because I know that's the thing. I mean, that guy who was in our club and he does the darkroom stuff, and I said, why are your prints so amazing? And he says, because they're handcrafted, and I just love that. But that's just not something that's available to me. What is available to me is my computer, my digital camera. So that's why I love bringing in organic sort of elements as textures and trying to bring that sort of slight imperfection in, even if I can get that, a bit of life into it.
It's kind of like in the Renaissance where they would layer in these opacities and it would almost make it go translucent, but they'd have a little bit of tint, and then they would pull it into certain corners of it and then layer in something else, and it just started building up. And so there's an old world quality to it. It's lovely.
Well,
yeah, and you can play. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you just play with it. I mean, you can sample those. If you have a texture brush, you can sample the colors of your main subject and bring that into your image as well. There's all sorts of things you can do.
The other thing is the way you layer using a combination of overlight and soft light and hard light. The layer blending itself, a lot of times I find that multiple applications of the same layer multiple times at lower opacity actually works better. And then sometimes what you want to be able to do is to paint things in and paint things out. It's really hard to predict in advance what texture you're going to have where at what strength and what blending method. That's the interactive. It's almost like painting, painting with texture and color and tone. That's one of the reasons that I like it. And Julie does a pretty good job of it, from what I can tell, because I can't see it really big yet.
Yeah,
we're going to go big. You'll be able to, I'll hold it up. I'll get the big giant print and I'll hold it up here in Cavan and tell you when.
Yeah, Jim is asking how important the tablet and pen are to your work. Could you do it with a mouse if you had to?
If I had to, I would do it with a mouse because I'm very practical like that. But I mean, again, secondhand tablet. Sorry, Wacom. I haven't bought one in a long time.
You actually pronounced it correctly.
Brilliant.
For those who don't know, Washington Control was the company that started Wacom. So that's what the Y is in Washington. They're here south of Seattle.
Yeah.
So it's not Wacom or Wacom.
Yeah, so that's a question I think comes up a lot when people are wondering, and I know people who've bought them and they haven't really got used to them or comfortable with them. So
that's me.
It's something. Yeah,
I've had 5 tablets over the years, and I still have one on my desk, and I just forget to pick up the pen.
It's just one of those funny things. Like often my mouse will go, the battery be drained out of it, and I'll just use the Wacom, and I'll be so used to it. I'll just use it. Even just for normal sort of stuff on the computer. But
Julie,
I think
where do you find the time?
Where do I find the time? Well, lockdown helped.
The what?
Lockdown
COVID
helped because we were in
lockdown.
the lockdown helped. And then there was a couple of summers ago when I was getting my A panel ready for the distinction, a couple of my friends will tell you that they didn't see me all summer. I'm a bit like that. If I get my teeth into something, I will spend days and days and days at it. So and if I'm not working at the computer, I'm thinking, when I'm driving, I'm thinking, do you know what? I need to drop the opacity on that layer. That's what's wrong with that. So I will, or I'll wake up in the morning, I'll say, no, I need to change the blend mode of that. That's what's wrong with it. So it's just, if I'm not at my computer, John's doing the whole thing there. If I'm not
The
on
wheels
my
are turning.
computer, I'm thinking about it. Yeah, exactly. And something that's not quite working, suddenly the penny will drop, and I'll be like, that's what it needs, or that's what it doesn't need.
Julie, do you happen to know an Irishman by the name of Anthony Hobbs?
I don't. No.
He's a good friend of mine. He's a landscape photographer. Used to teach in Dublin. Used to teach photography, and I put a link to his Facebook page.
I see it there. Yeah.
And he's actually quite good. He lives out in the country, but he used to teach in Dublin. And just to let you know, I've been to Dublin. I love Dublin. I actually got hired by Budweiser to go to Ireland to shoot Budweiser when they were brewing Budweiser in Kilkenny. And it was, Budweiser brewed Budweiser in Kilkenny, part of the Guinness brewery. And they did that so they could export from Ireland through the EU as a European product, which I thought was pretty sneaky. But the Irish don't particularly care for Budweiser much. I got into several situations where that was at a time when a lot of stuff was being bought from outside of Ireland, and Guinness and just all kinds of stuff. So, but I love Dublin. It seemed it was driving me nuts. There were times when we wanted sun, and of course it rained, and there were times that we wanted rain, and of course the sun was out. But I ended up shooting a bunch of pubs in Dublin that I rather enjoyed. That was back when I used to drink.
I think I heard about that actually.
What?
The week Jeff was in Dublin. I think there's a plaque.
So Paul is saying Budweiser came from the Czech Republic, and the original company was Budvar.
Budvar. Yeah.
Budvar.
But
cool.
Introduce yourself to Anthony. He's a good friend and also very good photographer, and he has an accent like yours.
Actually, Budvar is what they had to call the beer after Adolphus Busch stole the copyright for Budweiser.
The history of beer now. That's just going to be our next conversation.
Yeah.
I
was in Bodovice, the Czech Republic, a couple of years ago, and went to the original brewery.
But speaking of conversations, Thursday we have Holger back to talk about the online galleries again. And on Thursday evening, I'm going to do a special Zoom session because it's someone's 76th birthday. So don't tell anyone, don't tell Nuller about it.
Doesn't look a day over 75.
I don't feel a day over 90.
I can't believe he's lasted this long.
Yeah, well, my wife feels the same way.
So anyone who subscribed to my list will get the invitation to register on Thursday afternoon. So that'll be coming out. I emailed some of you, and if you have friends,
Julie should in fact stay tuned for that Holger thing.
Yeah, the Holger thing's at the normal time.
Yeah, but Julie, you want to make it a point to come on board with that. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. I will indeed.
Cool.
That will,
seems like everyone's gotten quiet here. We've gone for an hour and a half.
No, it's been great. Julie, you're fantastic. I'm very impressed with you. You have indeed raised the bar, and hopefully I'll be in one later today.
I approve this message.
Julie, you've inspired me to go out and print some photographs. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant, Paul.
You've inspired me to take up a different occupation entirely.
I agree. Julie, you still only have one camera, one lens.
Yeah, I can't. The discipline is there.
Didn't you have a 35mm lens also, 1.4?
I had I had a, you see, I had a crop sensor, so I had a 70D before I got my 5D. So the crop sensor, what was it? It's a 50 millimeter. So it was a 50 millimeter. So I think with the crop sensor, what's it? 1.6 is the
1.6
equivalent of a
on
30.
Canon.
Yes.
Yeah. So I
So
think
the-
it was the equivalent of a 35 millimeter. Something like that. Yeah, I think it was. We're getting into the technical side of things. But no, my first one was just the entry level 1100D, which I think is probably a 1300D now by Canon. And I got the Northern Lights and everything on that. I mean, I really pushed it to the limits. And then the 70D was next. That was my reward. And then, as I said, it had the 50 millimeter, but I think with the 1.6 ratio difference, it worked out. It's equivalent of 35 millimeter.
No, we'd actually go
No,
the
it
other
goes the other way.
Or go the other way, 85.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be it.
So which
then-
camera do you have now?
Just
Five.
the 5D Mark III.
Photographers always think the best lens for the job is the one they do not own.
Well, if you're Dan Burkholder, Julie, do you know Dan Burkholder or knew of him?
No,
Okay,
I
that's
don't.
another name. Geez. Dan Burkholder, he does a lot of platinum, palladium, and gold printing. But he takes he does a lot of stuff with iPhone, remarkable stuff with iPhone that he then blows up and does digital positives and then does platinum, palladium prints.
Wow.
Absolutely. And his new thing is little gold prints, little objects of art. They're tiny and really expensive, and they seem to be flying off the shop. They sold a lot for Christmas.
They're a great investment as well, aren't they?
Cool.
Yeah, I'll definitely look him up. That sounds really interesting.
And he's also a really good guy and quite the teacher as well. And that's one of the things that I find is that a lot of the photographers that are kind of retired or former teachers tend to be real nice people. And a lot of the commercial, high flung are assholes. So
You got to take the money out of the equation.
yeah.
Isn't that
But
right, Michael?
I posted
Absolutely
Burkholder's URL there. In fact, he would be a great one to talk to, John.
Yes. Thank
Do
you.
you know Dan?
I don't. I know the name, but I don't think I've ever met him.
Okay.
If you want to send an introduction, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Jan Staudek used to do stuff like this in Czech Republic during the film era.
Who was that?
Jan Staudek.
Hmm.
I'll write it down here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks, everyone. I'm going to stop the Facebook feed.
Thank you.
This was very good. Julie, you done good.
Thank you. Well, you're a lovely group. It's nice to sit down and have conversations about photography.
I'm amazed at your stamina in terms of what you do. I don't know where you get the energy from.
I think it's finding your you see, when you find your passion, it doesn't feel like work, though.
Well, you're right, but you also have how many kids?
Yeah.
3.
Okay, good.
And they range in age from
12 to 22. So really 12 is the last one. And she's
So
my biggest
slave
critic.
labor.
what?
Yeah, pretty
Slave
well,
labor.
Slave
pretty
labor.
much. I mean, they did do well out of Santa this year. So, But my last shot there was with a model, Ivory Flame. You'll find her. She has a website and she's on Instagram. She has the red hair, but she has been doing, and you might know some models, maybe more of you do, who do the remote shoots. So it's a bit like a tethered shoot.
Yeah.
So during the COVID, because they weren't able to do their normal sort of meetups and shoots, they offered sort of this remote shooting. So I gave that a go with Ivory, and I have to say it worked out. It worked out well for my style of photography because I literally had a whole load of poses. for her to do for me. And so it was good fun. And it's worth checking out if you're stuck at home and you really would love some more model shots to work with. She's a very, very beautiful model. She's based in
Julie,
England.
what photographer inspires you or would be a mentor for you?
Well, Brooke would be the big one, Brooke Shaden, because she's, I can actually talk with Brooke. I can email Brooke, that type of thing, because yeah, and I like the way she's always developing and questioning and experimenting.
But outside your circle,
with photography, I loved when I started off, and I did some nice portraits for another sort of a project that I haven't really done much with. Jane Bowen, is it? She was the photographer with the Observer newspaper in England. She did the famous Beckett, was it Beckett out at the brick wall and that type of thing. She was a natural light photographer. She basically had her setting, she had her one camera, and that was it. So I like that sort of practical nature of you know, having a style and sticking to it. But she's a lot of famous portraits and they're very beautiful. So I think it's Jane Bowen is how it's spelled. And there's a couple of photo books of her work. So she was very cool. And as I said, Seamus Murphy, he does work with the singer PJ Harvey. So he's done a lot of war photography and that type of thing, which is, you know, it's serious stuff. People like that.
Cool.
May I ask, how do you, this remote shooting is kind of stuck in my mind and I can't seem to get it to a point where it makes sense to me. And I've seen other people do it. May I ask how you plan, design, and execute, and over what format you do it? How do you do it?
Well, first off, well, my advice is if you see anyone offering that is to contact them. When I messaged Ivory, first off, I found out she has a Canon camera with a 50mm lens. So straight off, I was like, oh, I'm used to this. That's not an issue for me. She's shooting with natural light. So you have a tethered shoot. So it's a bit like shooting with Lightroom, you know, where you can go into manual. So I can change all my ISO, aperture, all that type of stuff. And with my type of thing, you know, there's an awful lot of looks there. Like there's, if you go onto her website, she has the remote shooting section, and you can see what other photographers, there's photographers I think from America, from Europe have used her. She does an awful lot of fine art nude. So I mean, you are limited in the sense that it is in a room in her home and there's a natural light window, but she's very good with, you know, throwing fabric, if you want to get those types of shots. As I said, fine art nude. I'm probably the only person who had her dressed in more clothes by the end of the shoot than most people would, but that's because I was looking for sort of she's just got a beautiful pre-Raphaelite look. So again, it's pre-visual. If you want a model with that sort of that ivory skin and red hair, she's the model to go for. I know she travels and she does do shoots for people, but remote shooting wise, I would look at her website and have a look and see what other people have done. I think there's even been some wet plate photography, and some photographers have actually posted her costumes and props to use in a shoot. She has a beautiful chair and stuff. So, you know, it's just trying to keep positive, trying to keep motivated. And if you are stuck at home, or if you are, you know, if all you can do is Zoom and that type of thing. I mean, like, I think we had a session, I think it was 2.5 hours, 3 hours. It was just brilliant. And it was like a collaboration because she's so experienced. You know, we were able to talk about different things. She has her model type poses, which I was, I enjoyed getting those, but then I would direct her, you know, for the type of stuff I wanted, you know, and the stuff that works for me, you know.
I apologize. Her name again?
Ivory Flame.
Gerard just put her link in the chat. Thank you.
And there's and I know there are other models doing the same sort of thing, just to try and keep an income going while we're all in lockdown.
Cool. Well, thank you all. This has been really fun, informative, educational. It got
Really,
so
thank
quiet all of a
you
sudden.
very much.
Well, I'm going to stop the recording. So everyone say your last thanks.
Thanks for the talk. Useful.
Thank you. This has been
Thank
great.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
It's,
John.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Julie,
Holger,
for
I
the
hope you got your
inspiration.
water fixed.
His water broke.
Yeah, but I think he came back. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you all so much.